Great talent wins games. Great stories win hearts. A shoulder drag, a fall, tears in Kyiv. 1 year later, a penalty in Madrid, a scream that split the night. How does a man go from being let go in London to being crowned in Liverpool? Mohamed Salah's story shouldn't have worked. In a league that once judged him too slight, too raw, too peripheral, he returned not as a survivor, but as a force of nature. From the narrow streets of Negrig to the thunder of the Kop, Salah flipped the script on English football. The winger who arrived with doubts became the record breaker who redefined what a Premier League forward could be. Consider the paradox. At Chelsea, he was a cameo, a loan spell, a line in a squad list. At Liverpool, he detonated. Goals that felt inevitable, runs that looked premeditated, a left foot that seemed to bend space. The numbers told one story, the feeling told another. With Salah on the pitch, Anfield didn't just hope, it expected. He wasn't simply scoring, he was altering the psychology of a club and the trajectory of a city thirsty for a league title that had eluded generations. Yet beneath the headlines sat a deeper current. A kid who spent hours on the road just to train, a professional who rebuilt his career in Italy, a star who carried the weight of a nation on nights when football meant more than football. This isn't just about goals and medals. It's about resilience, reinvention, faith, and the stubborn refusal to let other people write your ending. This film argues that Salah's rise is the definitive modern Premier League odyssey. Failure, exile, reinvention, return, and reign. The stakes were never merely trophies. They were identity, belonging, and legacy. The cost was pain, doubt, and the loneliness of starting over. The reward? A Champions League, a long-awaited league title, and a place in football's living memory as the King of Anfield. Mohamed Salah Hamed Marous Ghali was born on June 15, 1992, in Nagreg, a small, dusty village in Egypt's Garbia Governorate. It was the kind of place where dreams rarely escaped the borders of the Nile Delta, where most families lived modest lives, and where football was an escape, not a profession. Salah's family was not wealthy. His father worked to support 5 children, and like most parents in the village, he worried about his son's obsession with a ball at his feet. Yet, from the beginning, Salah was different. He wasn't just playing football, he was consumed by it. As a boy, he would spend endless hours in the narrow streets, juggling makeshift balls, racing with friends, and mimicking the stars he caught glimpses of on television. But unlike his peers, Salah's commitment quickly surpassed the boundaries of pastime. At just 14, he joined a youth academy in Tanta, the nearest city, and soon after began making grueling commutes to Cairo to pursue his football education. Imagine this, a teenager leaving school early, boarding one minibus after another, sometimes traveling up to 5 hours each way, simply to train for a session that lasted only 2 hours. And then he would repeat it every single day. Those journeys forged more than stamina. They instilled discipline and sacrifice. While other boys his age were out socializing, Salah was alone on the road, carrying nothing but his boots and belief. His father worried about the toll, but his mother encouraged him, reminding him that talent without persistence was just a spark that would burn out. The early signs of genius were already visible. Coaches at Arab Contractors, the Cairo-based club that eventually signed him, remember a wiry boy with lightning speed and a left foot that could cut through defenses like a blade. But what impressed them most wasn't his talent, it was his relentlessness. Salah played every match as if it was his last chance to prove himself. In a country where few boys from villages ever made it, he was determined to be the exception. And it was in that crucible of poverty, travel, and persistence that the boy from Nagreg began shaping the mentality that would one day conquer the Premier League. At 17, Mohamed Salah's dedication paid off when he broke into the senior side of El Mo Cologne. known internationally as Arab contractors. It wasn't glamour football. The pitches were rugged, the crowds modest, and the wages barely enough to support his family. But for Salah, wearing that jersey was validation. The boy who spent half his life on the road was now a professional footballer. He didn't explode immediately. In his first appearances, Salah looked raw, fast but erratic, unpredictable but sometimes wasteful. Yet there was something undeniable about him. His acceleration shredded defenders. His dribbling, though unpolished, was instinctive and daring. Coaches began to whisper that this boy from Negrig had something rare, the ability to unbalance a game in a heartbeat. The defining moment of the stage came in 2012. Egypt's league had been suspended following the Port Said Stadium tragedy, and young players feared their careers might stall. Salah was called up to the Egyptian under-23 team for a friendly against Switzerland's Basel. It was supposed to be a routine exhibition, but for Salah, it was destiny. He started on the bench, came on in the second half, and within minutes transformed the match. His pace tore Basel's defense apart, and though he missed several chances, the Swiss club's scouts were captivated, not by perfection, but by potential. Basel moved quickly. Just weeks later, Salah was on a plane to Switzerland, a culture shock that would test him as much as any defender. He didn't speak the language, he missed his family, and he found European football faster, more physical, more ruthless. At first, he struggled with the demands of training, and teammates joked about his awkward finishing. But then, in the Champions League, Salah showed why Basel had taken the gamble. Against Chelsea, against Tottenham, against some of Europe's toughest opponents, he delivered moments of pure electricity, searing runs, brave finishes, goals that announced his arrival on the continental stage. Jose Mourinho and Chelsea took note. In 2014, the London Giants swooped, signing Salah for around £11 million. For a boy from Negrig, it was the culmination of every sacrifice. He was now at one of the richest clubs in the Premier League. The dream, however, turned complicated. At Stamford Bridge, Salah was more spectator than star. He made only a handful of appearances, often confined to the bench, sometimes omitted from the squad altogether. Mourinho, known for his unforgiving standards, did not see him as ready. Still, even in those fleeting minutes, glimpses of brilliance appeared. A burst of speed down the right, a goal against Arsenal, a spark that hinted at more. But opportunity never truly came. Chelsea was stacked with attacking talent, and Salah was disposable. Within a year, he was sent on loan, the narrative of flop beginning to attach itself to his name. And yet, as the world would learn, this rejection was not the end. It was the catalyst. The boy who once traveled hours just to train was about to start the hardest journey of all, proving that failure was only the first step towards greatness.
Rejection at Chelsea could have broken Mohamed Salah. For many players, being branded a failure in the Premier League is a stigma that never fades. But for Salah, exile became rebirth. In February 2015, he was loaned to Fiorentina in Serie A. At first glance, it looked like a step down, from London's global spotlight to Florence's quieter footballing stage. Yet in Italy, Salah found what Chelsea never offered: trust, freedom, and minutes on the pitch. Almost instantly, he came alive. In just a handful of games, Salah dazzled Serie A with his pace and directness. Against Juventus in the Coppa Italia, he scored a breathtaking solo goal, sprinting from his own half before finishing coolly past Gianluigi Buffon. Italian commentators marveled at the Egyptian's speed, likening him to a Ferrari streaking down the wing. Fiorentina fans who had barely known his name weeks earlier began to sing it with reverence. Salah's confidence, dented in England, was roaring back. But Fiorentina was only the beginning. In the summer of 2015, Salah joined AS Roma, first on loan and then permanently. Roma offered him not only a starting role, but also a system tailored to his strengths. Under coach Luciano Spalletti, Salah was unleashed as part of a devastating front line, alongside Edin Dzeko and Raja Nainggolan. Week after week, he terrorized defenses, cutting inside from the right, leaving fullbacks gasping for air. The numbers told the story of his rebirth. In 2 seasons at Roma, Salah scored 34 goals and delivered countless assists across all competitions. But beyond the statistics was his transformation. No longer the uncertain fringe player from Chelsea, Salah had matured into a complete forward. Still rapid, still unpredictable, but now ruthless in front of the goal. His decision-making sharpened, his finishing improved, and his confidence became unshakable. Serie A was the proving ground, but the Champions League was the showcase. Against Europe's elite, Salah's performances caught the eye once again, reminding scouts and coaches that the Egyptian who had once been discarded in England was now one of the most lethal wingers on the continent. His consistency could not be ignored. By 2017, the whispers began. Salah was ready for another shot at the Premier League. Liverpool, under the visionary guidance of Jurgen Klopp, saw what others had missed. Klopp's system, heavy metal football, relentless pressing, and explosive counterattacks, was designed for a forward like Salah. For £36.9 million, Liverpool brought him back to England. Many pundits raised eyebrows, questioning whether he was truly worth it, whether he would once again falter in the unforgiving pace of the Premier League. But Salah himself knew he was not the same boy Chelsea had overlooked. He had been forged in rejection, refined in Italy, and now returned armed with confidence and experience. The stage was set not for redemption, but for dominance. And so from the shadows of failure, Salah stepped back into the world's brightest spotlight. What happened next would not only rewrite his career, but also reshape Liverpool's history.
When Mohamed Salah arrived at Liverpool in the summer of 2017, the expectations were modest. He was seen by many as a Chelsea reject, a winger who had rebuilt himself in Italy, but still unproven in England. Within months, those doubts evaporated. What unfolded in that debut season was not simply a revival, it was a revolution. The record-breaking arrival. From his very first Premier League appearances, Salah looked like a man determined to erase every shadow of doubt. His pace was electric, his movement relentless, his left foot lethal. Defenders quickly discovered that even when they thought they had contained him, Salah could slip past with one subtle touch or a burst of acceleration. Week after week, he scored goals of every variety, tap-ins from clever positioning, long-range curlers that bent beyond goalkeepers, slaloming runs that left entire defenses in his wake. By the end of the 2017-18 season, Salah had scored 32 Premier League goals, breaking the record for most goals in a 38-game season. He added another 10 in the Champions League, guiding Liverpool to their first final in over a decade. In total, 44 goals across all competitions, a tally matched only by legends of the game. The man once dismissed as not good enough was now being compared to Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi. The symbol of Klopp's Liverpool. Salah's rise coincided perfectly with Jurgen Klopp's tactical vision. Liverpool's identity under Klopp was built on pressing, speed, and ruthless transitions. With Sadio Mane on the left, Roberto Firmino orchestrating centrally, and Salah cutting in from the right, the trio became one of the most feared attacking units in world football. They were not just scoring goals, they were suffocating opponents, breaking at such speed and precision that matches often felt decided in a matter of minutes. Anfield embraced Salah instantly. His humble demeanor off the pitch contrasted with his killer instinct on it. Songs about him echoed across the Kop. If he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. If he scores another few, then I'll be Muslim too. Salah wasn't just Liverpool's star, he became a cultural icon, breaking down stereotypes and making Muslim identity visible in a positive, joyous way. The heartbreak of Kiev. Yet at the peak of this first wave came the most brutal of setbacks. In May 2018, the Champions League final against Real Madrid was supposed to be Salah's coronation. Instead, it became one of football's most heartbreaking images. Sergio Ramos tangling with Salah, the Egyptian landing awkwardly, his shoulder dislocated, his tears streaming as he left the pitch. Liverpool lost 3-1, and Salah's dream ended in agony. But that night did not define him, it fueled him. Just weeks later, injured and barely fit, he returned to lead Egypt at the World Cup, scoring twice despite the pain. His resilience, his willingness to carry a nation on broken shoulders, deepened his legend. Redemption in Madrid, glory in England. The following season, Salah and Liverpool came back hungrier. In 2019, they stormed through the Champions League, defeating giants along the way. In the final, Salah stepped up to take a second-minute penalty against Tottenham. He converted with ice-cold composure, exorcising the ghosts of Kiev. Liverpool lifted their 6th European Cup, and Salah, arms raised to the Madrid sky, completed his journey from heartbreak to redemption. But the greatest prize was still to come. In the 2019-20 season, Salah remained the spearhead as Liverpool ended a 30-year wait for the league title. The campaign was a juggernaut. 99 points, dominance from start to finish, and Salah delivering in the biggest moments. To the Cop, he was not just a scorer, he was the embodiment of their rebirth. From nearly men to champions, from yearning to fulfillment, Salah had carried Liverpool across the finish line. Comparisons with legends. By now, the comparisons were inevitable. Analysts debated whether Salah's numbers and consistency placed him among the Premier League's all-time greats. His blend of speed, balance, and finishing echoed Thierry Henry's Arsenal years. His knack for scoring decisive goals mirrored Cristiano Ronaldo's United years. But Salah wasn't a copy, he was unique. A left-footed forward from Egypt, rewriting records in a league that once doubted him. Behind the numbers. Statistics alone don't capture Salah's impact. Beyond the goals, he brought belief. Teammates spoke of his relentless training ethic, his refusal to settle, his drive to keep breaking barriers. Opponents admitted his runs were impossible to track, his confidence unshakable. Off the pitch, his humility resonated. Whether visiting his hometown in Egypt or donating millions to charity, Salah remained grounded, never forgetting Nagrig. But yet, at his peak, storms were brewing. The pain of Kiev never fully left him. Rivalries within Liverpool's front line whispered beneath the surface, and outside Anfield, he faced battles with his own federation, with politics, and with the crushing weight of expectation from millions who saw him as more than just a footballer. Even heroes are not immune to turbulence. For Mohamed Salah, the years after his peak triumphs were painted with shadows, moments of pain, of conflict, of scrutiny that tested not his left foot, but his resilience. The ghost of Kiev and lingering injuries. The 2018 Champions League final injury was more than a single night's heartbreak. It haunted Salah through the following seasons, raising doubts about his physical durability. While he returned to action quickly, critics wondered whether defenders had discovered a blueprint to nullify him with physicality. Shoulder, ankle, and muscle knocks became recurring concerns. Every time Salah went down, fans held their breath, fearing the unthinkable, the loss of their talisman. The Mane rivalry. Inside Liverpool's golden attacking trio, another narrative was brewing. Salah and Sadio Mane were teammates, partners in terrorizing defenses. But football's hunger for individual glory sometimes breeds friction. In 2019, cameras caught Mane fuming after Salah failed to pass in a clear scoring situation against Burnley. Headlines screamed of a rivalry, whispers of ego clashing with ego. For weeks, the media speculated on fractures within Klopp's carefully balanced system. To his credit, Klopp dismissed the rumors, framing it as the natural fire of elite athletes. Both Salah and Mane publicly downplayed any tension. Yet the truth was evident. Both men were desperate to be decisive, to carry the burden of goals. For Salah, it was proof that being at the summit comes with as many internal battles as external ones. Away from Liverpool, Salah carried another responsibility, the pride and expectation of Egypt. In 2018 and 2019,
tensions with the Egyptian Football Association spilled into public view. Salah criticized the federation for poor organization, lack of player welfare, and misuse of his image rights. Fans debated fiercely. Was he a selfish star or a voice for reform? For Salah, it was an impossible balancing act, being both Egypt's greatest hope and its harshest critic. When the national team crashed out of the 2019 Africa Cup of Nations on home soil, fingers pointed everywhere, but Salah bore the heaviest blame. Back at Liverpool, maintaining extraordinary standards became a challenge in itself. Opponents no longer underestimated him. They doubled and tripled their marking. Every goal drought, no matter how brief, was magnified. Social media buzzed with premature obituaries of his form. Has Salah peaked? Has the league figured him out? The truth was more complex. Salah continued to score prolifically, but living up to the myth he had created in 2017-18 was nearly impossible. Moments of redemption. Yet through the turbulence, Salah's defining trait emerged again: resilience. He responded to doubts not with words, but with goals. Against Manchester United, against Tottenham, against Everton. Time and again, he silenced criticism with decisive strikes. He may not have matched his record-breaking debut season, but his consistency across years was remarkable. Few players in Premier League history have maintained such a high level for so long. A subtle shift. By the early 2020s, Salah's role had subtly evolved. He was no longer just the surprise weapon. He was Liverpool's constant, the pillar around which others rotated. As Mane departed and new forwards like Diogo Jota and Darwin Núñez arrived, Salah remained the anchor of Klopp's attack. He had shifted from being the young pretender to the experienced leader, carrying the torch for a squad in transition. This phase of Salah's journey revealed the cost of greatness. It was no longer about breaking records. It was about sustaining excellence, enduring scrutiny, and proving that resilience is as legendary as glory.
Mohamed Salah's story is not just the tale of a prolific goal scorer. It is the story of a boy from a small Egyptian village who rewrote the boundaries of what was possible. At Liverpool, he became more than a winger. He became an era. His goals delivered Champions League glory, ended a 30-year league drought, and placed the club back among Europe's giants. For generations of Liverpool supporters, Salah is not simply a player they cheered. He is the face of their greatest nights, their long-awaited triumphs, their return to the summit. But Salah's impact extends beyond Merseyside. For millions across Africa and the Middle East, he is proof that origin need not define destiny. He is a Muslim athlete celebrated in stadiums where his faith once might have been mocked. His simple gestures, prostrating in prayer after goals, speaking humbly of his roots, giving back to Nagreg, resonated far beyond the pitch. Studies in England even showed drops in anti-Muslim sentiment in areas where Salah played, a testament to how sport, embodied in one man, can reshape culture. How will he be remembered, not only as the king of the Kop, but as a bridge between continents, between faiths, between the underdog and the dreamer? Salah's legacy is a reminder: greatness is not only measured in medals, but in meaning. And in that regard, his story will endure long after the final whistle. And so, from the dusty streets of Nagreg to the roaring stands of Anfield, Mohamed Salah has proven what resilience, faith, and relentless drive can achieve. His journey reminds us once more: great talent wins games, great stories win hearts. Thank you for joining us on this story. If Salah's journey inspired you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the untold stories of Premier League legends. Up next, we'll uncover another African icon whose impact on English football was just as seismic: Didier Drogba, the man who not only scored goals, but once saved a nation.